Section 6 of the Love Letters of Dorothy Osborne. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Love Letters of Dorothy Osborne to Sir William Temple, 1952–54. Section 6. Letter 26. Sir, the day I should have received your letter, I was invited to dine at a rich widow's, whom I think I once told you of, and offered my service in case you thought fit to make addresses there. And she was so kind, and in so good humour, that if I had had any commission, I should have thought it a very fit time to speak. We had a huge dinner, though the company was only of her own kindred that are in the house with her, and what I brought. But she is broke loose from an old miserable husband that lived so long, she thinks if she does not make haste she shall not have time to spend what he left. She is old, and was never handsome, and yet is courted 1,000 times more than the greatest beauty in the world would be that had not a fortune. We could not eat in quiet for the letters and presents that came in from people that would not have looked upon her when they had met her if she had been left poor. I could not but laugh to myself at the meanness of their humour, and was merry enough all day, for the company was very good. And besides, I expected to find when I came home a letter from you that would be more a feast and company to me than all that was there. But never anybody was so defeated as I was to find none. I could not imagine the reason, only I assured myself it was no fault of yours, but perhaps a just punishment upon me for having been too much pleased in a company where you were not. After supper my brother and I fell into dispute about riches, and the great advantages of it. He instanced in the widow that it made one respected in the world. I said 'twas true, but that was a respect I should not at all value, when I owed it only to my fortune. And we debated it so long, till we had both talked ourselves weary enough to go to bed. Yet I did not sleep so well, but that I chid my maid for waking me in the morning, till she stopped my mouth with saying she had letters for me. I had not patience to stay till I could rise, but made her tie up all the curtains to let in light, and among some others I found my dear letter that was first to be read, and which made all the rest not worth the reading. I could not but wonder to find in it that my cousin Franklin should want a true friend when 'tis thought she has the best husband in the world. He was so passionate for her before he had her, and so pleased with her since, that, in earnest, I did not think it possible she could have anything left to wish for, that she had not already in such a husband with such a fortune. But she can best tell whether she is happy or not. Only if she be not, I do not see how anybody else can hope it. I know her the least of all the sisters, and perhaps 'tis to my advantage that she knows me no more, since she speaks so obligingly of me. But do you think it was altogether without design she spoke it to you? When I remember she is Tom Cheeke's sister, I am apt to think she might have heard his news, and meant to try whether there was anything of truth in it. My cousin Molly, I think, meant to end the summer there. They say, indeed, 'tis a very fine seat, but if I did not mistake Sir Thomas Cheeke, he told me there was never a good room in the house. I was wondering how you came by an acquaintance there, because I had never heard you speak that you knew them. I never saw him in my life, but he is famous for a kind husband. Only it was found fault with that he could not forbear kissing his wife before company, a foolish trick that young married men are apt to do. He has left it long since, I suppose, but, seriously, 'tis as ill a sight as one would wish to see, and appears very rude, methinks, to the company. What a strange fellow this goldsmith is! He has a head fit for nothing but horns. I chid him once for the seal he set me, just of this fashion and the same colours. If he were to make 20, they should be all so. His invention can stretch no further than blue and red. It makes me think of the fellow that could paint nothing but a flower de luce, who, when he met with one that was so firmly resolved to have a lion for his sign that there was no persuading him out on it, well, says the painter, let it be a lion then, but it shall be as like a flower de luce as ever you saw. So, because you would have it a dolphin, he consented to it, but it is like an ill-favoured knot of ribbon. I did not say anything of my father's being ill of late. I think I told you before, he kept his chamber ever since his last sickness, and so he does still. Yet I cannot say that he is at all sick, but has so general a weakness upon him that I am much afraid their opinion of him has too much of truth in it, and do extremely apprehend how the winter may work upon him. Will you pardon the strange scribbled letter, and the disorderliness on it? I know you would, though I should not tell you that I am not so much at leisure as I used to be. You can forgive your friends anything, and when I am not the faithfulest of those, never forgive me. You may direct your letters how you please. Here will be nobody to receive it but your faithful friend and servant, Dorothy Osborne. Letter 27. Sir, your last came safe, and I shall follow your direction for the address of this, though, as you say, I cannot imagine what should tempt anybody to so severe a search for them, unless it be that he is not yet fully satisfied to what degree our friendship is grown, and thinks he may best inform himself from them. In earnest, 'twould not be unpleasant to hear our discourse. He forms his with so much art and design, and is so pleased with the hopes of making some discovery, and I, who know him as well as he does himself, cannot but give myself the recreation sometimes of confounding him and destroying all that his busy head had been working on since the last conference. He gives me some trouble with his suspicions, yet, on my conscience, he is a greater to himself, and I deal with so much franchise as to tell him so. And yet he has no more the heart to ask me directly what he would so fain know, than a jealous man has to ask one that might tell him whether he were a cuckold or not, for fear of being resolved of that which is yet a doubt to him. My eldest brother is not so inquisitive. He satisfies himself with persuading me earnestly to marry, and takes no notice of anything that may hinder me, but a carelessness of my fortune, or perhaps an aversion to a kind of life that appears to have less of freedom in it than that which at present I enjoy. But, sure, he gives himself another reason, for 'tis not very long since he took occasion to inquire for you very kindly of me, and though I could then give but little account of you, he smiled as if he did not altogether believe me, and afterwards maliciously said he wondered you did not marry, and I seemed to do so too, and said, if I knew any woman that had a great fortune, and were a person worthy of you, I should wish her you with all my heart. But, sister, says he, would you have him love her? Do you doubt it? Did I say he were not happy in it else? He laughed, and said my humour was pleasant, but he made some question whether it was natural or not. He cannot be so unjust as to let me lose him, sure. I was kind to him, though I had some reason not to take it very well, when he made that a secret to me which was known to so many that did not know him. But we shall never fall out, I believe. We are not apt to it, neither of us. If you are come back from Epsom, I may ask you how you like drinking water? I have wished it might agree as well with you as it did with me. And if it were as certain that the same thing would do us good as 'tis that the same thing would please us, I should not need to doubt it. Otherwise my wishes do not signify much. But I am forbid complaints, or to express my fears, and be it so, only you must pardon me if I cannot agree to give you false hopes. I must be deceived myself before I can deceive you, and I have so accustomed myself to tell you all that I think, that I must either say nothing, or that which I believe to be true. I cannot say but that I have wanted Jane, but it has been rather to have somebody to talk with of you, than that I needed anybody to put me in mind of you, and with all her diligence I should have often prevented her in that discourse. Were you at Althorpe when you saw my Lady Sunderland and Mr. Smith, or are they in town? I have heard, indeed, that they are very happy, but with all that, as she is a very extraordinary person herself, so she aimed at doing extraordinary things, and when she had married Mr. Smith, because some people were so bold as to think she did it because she loved him, she undertook to convince the world that what she had done was in mere pity to his sufferings, and that she could not go a step lower to meet anybody than that led her, though when she thought there were no eyes on her, she was more gracious to him. But perhaps this might not be true, or it may be that she is now grown weary of that constraint she put upon herself. I should have been sadder than you if I had been their neighbour to have seen them so kind, as I must have been if I had married the Emperor. He used to brag to me always of a great acquaintance he had there, what an esteem my lady had for him, and had the vanity, not to call it impudence, to talk sometimes as if he would have had me believe he might have had her, and would not. I'll swear I blushed for him when I saw he did not. He told me too, that though he had carried his addresses to me with all the privacy that was possible, because he saw I liked it best, and that it was partly his own humour too, yet she had discovered it, and could tell that there had been such a thing, and that it was broke off again, she knew not why. Which certainly was a lie, as well as the other, for I do not think she ever heard there was such a one in the world as your friend and servant, Dorothy Osborne. Letter 28. Sir, I do not lay it as a fault to your charge that you are not good at disguise. If it be one, I am too guilty on it myself to accuse another. And though I have been told it shows an unpractisedness in the world, and betrays to all that understand it better, yet since it is a quality I was not born with, nor even like to get, I have always thought good to maintain that it was better not to need it than to have it. I have always thought good to maintain that it was better not to need it than to have it. I give you many thanks for your care of my Irish dog, but I am extremely out of countenance your father should be troubled with it. Sure, he will think I have a most extravagant fancy. But do me the right as to let him know I am not so possessed with it as to consent he should be employed in such a commission. Your opinion of my eldest brother is, I think, very just, and when I said maliciously, I meant a French malice, which you know does not signify the same with an English one. I know not whether I told it you or not, but I concluded, from what you said of your indisposition, that it was very like the spleen. But perhaps I foresaw you would not be willing to own a disease that the severe part of the world holds to be merely imaginary and affected, and therefore proper only to women. However, I cannot but wish you had stayed longer at Epsom, and drunk the waters with more order, though in a less proportion. But did you drink them immediately from the well? I remember I was forbid it, and methought with a great deal of reason, for, especially at this time of year, the well is so low, and there is such a multitude to be served out on it, that you can hardly get any but what is thick and troubled. And I have marked that, when it stood all night, for that was my direction, the bottom of the vessel it stood in would be covered an inch thick with a white clay, which, sure, has no great virtue in it, and is not very pleasant to drink. What a character of a young couple you give me! You would ask some one who knew him, whether he be not much more of an ass since his marriage than he was before. I have some reason to doubt that it alters people strangely. I made a visit the other day to welcome a lady into this country whom her husband had newly brought down, and because I knew him, though not her, and she was a stranger here, 'twas a civility I owed them. But you cannot imagine how I was surprised to see a man that I had known so handsome, so capable of being made a pretty gentleman, for though he was no proud philosopher, as the Frenchmen say, he was that which good company and a little knowledge of the world would have made equal to many that think themselves very well, and are thought so, transformed into the direct shape of a great boy newly come from school. To see him wholly taken up with running on errands for his wife, and teaching her little dog tricks! And this was the best of him, for when he was at leisure to talk, he would suffer no one else to do it, and what he said, and the noise he made, if you had heard it, you would have concluded him drunk with joy that he had a wife and a pack of hounds. I was so weary on it that I made haste home, and could not but think of the change all the way till my brother, who was with me, thought me sad, and so, to put me in better humour, said he believed I repented me I had not this gentleman, now I saw how absolutely his wife governed him. But I assured him, that though I thought it very fit such as he should be governed, yet I should not like the employment by no means. It becomes no woman, and did so ill with this lady, that in my opinion it spoiled a good face and a very fine gown. Yet the woman you met upon the way governed her husband, and did it handsomely. It was, as you say, a great example of friendship, and much for the credit of our sex. You are too severe to Walker. I'll undertake he would set me 20 seals for nothing rather than undergo your wrath. I am in no haste for it, and so he does it well we will not fall out. Perhaps he is not in the humour of keeping his word at present, and nobody can blame him if he be often in an ill one. But though I am merciful to him, as to one that has suffered enough already, I cannot excuse you that profess to be my friend, and yet are content to let me live in such ignorance, write to me every week, and yet never send me any of the new phrases of the town. I could tell you, without abandoning the truth, that it is part of your devoir to correct the imperfections you find under my hand, and that my trouble resembles my wonder you can let me be dissatisfied. I should never have learnt any of these fine things from you, and, to say truth, I know not whether I shall from anybody else, if to learn them be to understand them. Pray what is meant by wellness and unwellness, and why is to some extreme better than to some extremity? I believe I shall live here till there is quite a new language spoke where you are, and shall come out like one of the seven sleepers, a creature of another age. But 'tis no matter so you understand me, though nobody else do, when I say how much I am your faithful and servant, Dorothy Osborne. Letter 29. Sir, I can give you leave to doubt anything but my kindness, though I can assure you I spake as I meant when I said I had not the vanity to believe I deserved yours, for I am not certain whether 'tis possible for anybody to deserve that another should love them above themselves, though I am certain many may deserve it more than me. But not to dispute this with you, let me tell you that I am thus far of your opinion, that upon some natures nothing is so powerful as kindness, and that I should give that to yours which all the merit in the world besides would not draw from me. I spake as if I had not done so already, but you may choose whether you will believe me or not, for, to say truth, I do not much believe myself in that point. No, all the kindness I have, or ever had, is yours, nor shall I ever repent it so, unless you shall ever repent yours. Without telling you what the inconveniences of your coming hither are, you may believe they are considerable, or else I should not deny you or myself the happiness of seeing one another. And if you dare trust me where I am equally concerned with you, I shall take hold of the first opportunity that may ever admit you here, or bring me nearer you. Sure you took somebody else for my cousin Peters? I can never believe her beauty able to smite anybody. I saw her when I was last in town, but she appeared wholly the same to me. She was at St. Malo, with all her innocent good nature too, and asked for you so kindly, that I am sure she cannot have forgot you. Nor do I think she had so much address as to do it merely in compliment to me. No, you are mistaken certainly. What should she do amongst all that company, unless she be towards a wedding? She has been kept at home, poor soul, and suffered so much of purgatory in this world that she needs not fear it in the next. And yet she is as merry as ever she was, which perhaps might make her look young, but that she laughs a little too much, and that will bring her wrinkles, they say. Oh me! Now I talk of laughing, it makes me think of poor Jane. I had a letter from her the other day. She desired me to present her humble service to her master. She did mean you, sure, for she named everybody else that she owes any service to, and bid me say that she would keep her word with him. God knows what you have agreed on together. She tells me she shall stay long enough there to hear from me once more, and then she is resolved to come away. Here is a seal, which pray give Walker to set for me very handsomely, and not of any of those fashions he made my others, but of something that may differ from the rest. 'Tis a plain head, but not ill cut, I think. My eldest brother is now here, and we expect my youngest shortly, and then we shall be all together, which I do not think we ever were twice in our lives. My niece is still with me, but her father threatens to fetch her away. If I can keep her to Michaelmas, I may perhaps bring her up to town myself, and take that occasion of seeing you. But I have no other business that is worth my taking a journey, for I have had other summons from my aunt, and I protest I am afraid I shall be in rebellion there, but 'tis not to be helped. The widow writes me word too, that I must expect her here about a month hence, and I find that I shall want no company, but only that which I would have, and for which I could willingly spare all the rest. Will it be ever thus? I am afraid it will. There has been complaints made on me already to my eldest brother, only in general, or at least he takes notice of no more. What offers I refuse, and what a strange humour has possessed me of being deaf to the advice of all my friends. I find I am to be baited by them all by turns. They weary themselves, and me too, to very little purpose, for to my thinking they talk the most impertinently that ever people did, and I believe they are not in my debt, but think the same of me. Sometimes I tell them I will not marry, and then they laugh at me. Sometimes I say, not yet, and they laugh more, and would make me believe I shall be old within this 12 month. I tell them I shall be wiser then. They say 'twill be to no purpose. Sometimes we are in earnest, and sometimes we are in jest, but always saying something since my brother Henry found his tongue again. If you were with me I could make sport of all this, but patience is my penance, is somebody's motto, and I think it must be mine. I am your faithful friend and servant, Dorothy Osborne. Letter 30. Sir, you cannot imagine how I was surprised to find a letter that began, Dear Brother. I thought sure it could not belong at all to me, and was afraid I had lost one by it, that you intended me another, and in your haste had mistook this for that. Therefore, till I found the permission you gave me, I had laid it by with a resolution not to read it, but to send it again. If I had done so, I had missed a great deal of satisfaction which I received from it. In earnest, I cannot tell you how kindly I take all the obliging things you say in it of me, nor how pleased I should be, for your sake, if I were able to make good the character you give me to your brother, and that I did not owe a great part of it wholly to your friendship for me. I dare call nothing on it my own but faithfulness. That I may boast of with truth and modesty, since 'tis but a simple virtue. And though some are without it, yet 'tis so absolutely necessary, that nobody wanting it can be worthy of any esteem. I see you speak well of me to other people, though you complain always to me. I know not how to believe I should misuse your heart as you pretend. I never had any quarrel to it, and since our friendship it has been dear to me as my own. 'Tis rather, sure, that you have a mind to try another, than that any dislike of yours makes you turn it over to me. But be it as it will, I am contented to stand to the loss. And perhaps when you have changed you will find so little difference that you will be calling for your own again. Do but assure me that I shall find you almost as merry as my Lady Anne Wentworth is always, and nothing shall fright me from my purpose of seeing you as soon as I can with any conveniency. I would not have you insensible of our misfortunes, but I would not either that you should revenge them on yourself. No, that shows a want of constancy, which you will hardly yield to be your fault. But 'tis certain that there was never anything more mistaken than the Roman courage, when they killed themselves to avoid misfortunes that were infinitely worse than death. You confess 'tis an age since our story began, as is not fit for me to own. Is it not likely, then, that if my face had ever been good, it might be altered since then? Or is it as unfit for me to own the change as the time that makes it? Be it as you please, I am not enough concerned in it to dispute it with you. For, trust me, if you would not have my face better, I am satisfied it should be as it is. Since, if ever I wished it otherwise, 'twas for your sake. I know not how I stumbled upon a news book this week, and, for want of something else to do, read it. It mentions my Lord Lisle's embassage again. Is there any such thing to words? I met with somebody else too in it that may concern anybody that has a mind to marry. 'Tis a new form for it, that, sure, will fright the country people extremely, for they apprehend nothing like going before a justice. They say no other marriage shall stand good in law. In conscience, I believe the old one is the better, and for my part am resolved to stay till that comes in fashion again. Can your father have so perfectly forgiven already the injury I did him, since you will not allow it to be any to you, in hindering you of Mrs. Chambers, as to remember me with kindness? 'Tis most certain that I am obliged to him, and, in earnest, if I could hope it might ever be in my power to serve him, I would promise something for myself. But is it not true, too, that you have represented me to him rather as you imagine me than as I am? And have you not given him an expectation that I shall never be able to satisfy? If you have, I can forgive you, because I know you meant well in it. But I have known some women that have commended others merely out of spite, and if I were malicious enough to envy anybody's beauty, I would cry it up to all that had not seen them. There's no such way to make anybody appear less handsome than they are. You must not forget that you have some letters in my debt, besides the answer to this. If there were not conveniences of sending, I should persecute you strangely. And yet you cannot wonder at it. The constant desire I have to hear from you, and the satisfaction your letters give me, would oblige one that has less time to write often. But yet I know what 'tis to be in the town. I could never write a letter from thence in my life of above a dozen lines. And though I see as little company as anybody that comes there, yet I always met with something or other that kept me idle. Therefore I can excuse it, though you do not exactly pay all that you owe, upon condition you shall tell me when I see you all that you should have writ if you had had time, and all that you can imagine to say to a person that is your faithful friend and servant, Dorothy Osborne. End of Section 6.